Okay, so welcome to part 3 of this series of videos on developing shop drawings for the toolbox. In this video, I'm going to cover how to make the detail sections and cut sheet or the cut diagram of the toolbox. And but first, what I want to do is something that I didn't neglected to do in the last video, which is to show how to draw the handle in isometric. So I drew the handle just by kind of the same way as the rest of the axon. I drew the lines, I filleted the corners, and I offset to show the thickness there. So I drew it kind of all based on the same dimensions. But what I want to do is also show the kind of twist in that same dimension. So this line right here, actually, let me change that, is like the center line of my handle. It's the center axis of my handle. So that was the line I drew first, and then I offset and everything. But this kind of central segment, this 8 inches right in the middle of the handle, is where our twist is. So that's what where I need to apply this drawing here, part of the drawing. So I copied it from down below on our plan down here, and what I want to do is I want to just move it up so that it's snapped to the end of my axis, and then I'm going to rotate it. And again, I'm snapping. I want the center point of my rotation to be the start point of the axis. Shift, and then I'm just going to rotate it so it's aligned to that axis. And actually, what I'll do right now is I'll select those two sets of lines and I'll just go isolate. So the command isolate just works the same basic way as hide, except that it hides everything except for what you're selecting. So now we're just working on these two curves. So what I want to do first is scale 1B again. This set of curves, and I'm going to line them up with my central axis. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to kind of shear it. So actually, let me do show selected to bring back some of these lines here. Those are the lines of my handle. So you can see like the angle of my axis is kind of off a little bit with the angle of that line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the command shear to kind of line it up according to the kind of isometric angle. So I'll select those curves, type in shear in the command line. Oops, I clicked on the wrong point. So we're going to snap to that corner, and then we're going to drag it down to that construction line, which is just at that 30 degrees. And so you can see now it kind of matches like where it should fit within that handle. So I'm going to move it over to within that handle. Okay. And then I'm just going to kind of move these lines. Actually, this should be, draw this out properly. Kind of go like that. Okay. And then I'm just going to trim everything else. Just like we did earlier. Oops, did that good? Good. Okay, and then I am going to copy a couple of these lines here. Okay. Right, and that should be just about good enough for what we're doing now. And I could use the command extend and just kind of make sure these guys are meeting each other. And that. Okay. There we go. There's our handle. And then what I would also want to do here is maybe kind of line weight a little bit. We'll explode that. Just put those lines that are not kind of inside on our lighter line weight. Don't form the profile. Okay. So there we go. And just like before, I'm also going to pull this part off, right? Because I want to kind of draw this separately. First, I'll use copy. Uh-oh. Stuff in there. Start over. Oops, and sorry, I'm going to copy it. Okay, let's put it kind of right there. Okay, cool. So, and then last little details here, just trim out the stuff where we wouldn't see. Should actually be locking my construction lines. Kind of what our axonometric, our drawing should look like. Okay, so, and I'll get more into composing that later when we do dimensioning and layout. But for now, I'm going to move on to the section drawings and the cut sheet. So the cut sheet should be kind of like exactly like, or similar to this. So these two drawings are actually going to reference each other, the axon and the cut sheet. The cut sheet is just going to be like each part kind of drawn independently and shown with its own set of dimensions kind of on its own. And we're just going to draw them kind of in elevation. So all I need to do is kind of work one piece at a time here. That's 14 3/4 by 8 by 6, I believe. Okay. So I'm going to work off to the right here. I just use the command rectangle. I'll type in 14.75 by 6. And there's the kind of bounding of the bottom, the base of the toolbox. And I'm also going to quickly take off these dimensions, which I think are 1/4, and 5/8, obviously, because of the thickness. Okay. So I'm going to just explode this guy. I'm going to offset this line because we're looking at it kind of from the top. We're looking directly on at it. 0.25. I'll offset that by 5/8, and then I'll mirror it across the center and just make sure that I have those on a lighter line weight. Okay, and to do these guys, I'll kind of work the same way. I'm going to take the dimensions. So we're 6 by 6. And this little cutout is 7/8 by 3 1/4. I'll draw a rectangle, 6 by 6. And I'll go in 7/8. And what did I say? 3 1/4? Smart Track's kind of getting in the way here. 3.25. Verify that dimension really quick. Yep, 3.25. Okay. And I'll mirror that. Actually, I'm going to explode it quickly. Delete that bottom line. I'll mirror that across the center. And now the other thing I want to draw on this guy, and again, I'm drawing it kind of just from whatever face shows me the most information. And actually, I could have actually copied this to base that drawing on too, but anyway, so what I need to also draw is where the dado is in that guy. I'm just going to copy these lines to give myself a reference for that. So, track. Okay, got a lighter line weight. There's that part. And then the other sides, 14 1/4 on the inside. Oh, of course, we can copy. I should have done that earlier. I'm going to lock there real quick. Is that there for a second? Okay. Oh yeah, so this one doesn't have a dado cut out of it. What I really need to do is complete the outline and join all those curves together. And that should be a good outline for our long side. Okay, and we could do the same for the handle. It is, of course, it's a part, and it's an important one. But it's going to just actually really be the exact same as it would be in elevation. So we'll just copy that over here. Okay, and we'll later on we'll use this to we'll set up our dimensions on this, and we'll set up a couple annotations to kind of reference one, like which part is which in 3D, which part is which in 2D, so we kind of know which how many of each part to fabricate. Okay, and the next part of this video, we're going to do our detail drawings. So again, working from our assignment sheet, we do have to do 3 detail drawings, connection details. So, and these are them. So we need to draw a typical dado connection. We need to draw this kind of lap joint where these pieces intersect. And we need to draw like where the handle attaches to the short side of the box, which is those 3 drawings there. So what I'm going to do first is just draw them out. And I think, let's see, again, I can just kind of base these on some of the drawings I've already done. I'll start with that. I'm going to copy this guy. I just did that by tapping Alt and dragging it. Okay, so imagine we were cutting through, I don't know if you can see this, but imagine we were cutting through the center of that board. And so we'd be seeing this whole board cut through. We'd be seeing the base, and we'd be seeing the short direction, the short side. So what we need to kind of do is redefine some of our lines. I'm going to get rid of the handle in this guy. And again, if we were cutting through the base, we actually wouldn't see this guy come all the way up. We would see the board that's going through it. So I'm going to go ahead and connect that line there. Okay, and I'm going to trim this stuff. Okay, and so we also need to kind of lay this one out differently. I'm going to join that. I'm also going to change all these outlines to heavy because we are cutting through them, except for this little part of the side down here that comes down, because that's actually inside of where our section cut's going. I'm going to keep that one on a lighter line weight. And the other thing that I want to do is I want to clip away, just like on the assignment sheet, I'm going to clip away using one of these little lines with a dash in it, a little Z in it. I'm going to clip away the part of the drawing that really isn't important. And again, this is like a typical connection. This is the kind of drawing you do to say, that's what it looks like at all four corners, right? All those dimensions are pretty much the same. So we're just going to draw it once, and we're going to say this is that connection type. So I'm going to start by drawing a line. I'm going to go from the top to the bottom here. Might scale that guy up a little bit. Okay. I'll draw another line, and I generally just eyeball these, and then copy them around if I need to. I'm just drawing a line from the center. Let me redo that really quick so you can see it better. So I drew a line. I hit B for both sides. I snap to the midpoint. Now you can see it's drawing out both sides. And again, like I said, I just eyeballed it. Okay, so, and then I'll draw a line up 30 degrees, and I'll rotate that, copy it, and just trim it. There we go, there's our line. I'm going to put that on the lighter line weight, and I'll use that to trim away the rest of the drawing. Now the other thing that we need to do here is add hatches, because it's important in connection detail drawings to understand the differences between materials and pieces. So if you go on to D2L on our course site under content, under assignments and tutorials, under project 1, there's a file called hatches. That's a Rhino file. So what you want to do is go ahead and just download that. I'm also going to download shop drawing title block, and I'm going to do that in the next tutorial, so I'll show it then. Okay. So now we should have a Rhino here. We should have a Rhino file in our downloads. I'm going to drag it. I'm just going to drag it right into my window. And instead of opening it, I'm going to import it. Click OK. So don't open it, because that'll close whatever you're working on. Just import it. And so when we import it, you'll see that I just got these couple little blocks of different hatches. This one's clearly wood. This one is what we use for steel. That one actually is already in AutoCAD, but it's labeled now. I'm sorry, it's already in Rhino. And this one is for concrete, and we're actually not going to use that one in this exercise. So we can go ahead and delete that one. Actually, we can delete all of them, because once we've imported that file, the hatches are stored. And so what I need to do then is actually apply the hatches to the drawing that I've just done. First of all, I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call it hatch. Oh, I guess I did that layer already. Whoops. Okay, so I'm just going to make a different color for it. Let's do something like that. Okay, we'll leave that alone for now. I'm going to set that as current. And without selecting anything, I'll just type hatch into the command line. And this option here where it says boundary, I'm going to click that option. And when I click that, it'll say select curves. So I'm going to select all these curves. And then I'll press enter. And what this allows me to do is kind of fill it, like with a paint bucket. So I can fill in whichever areas I want to hatch. So for example, I'm going to hatch this one first. And I'll go to my wood hatch. And there's two options down here. I can change the rotation, and I can change the scale of it. I'll change it to like 3, a little bit closer. Then I'll do it again. And so this time I'll fill this part. And again, this is a different piece, right? It's a different part of my model. So I'm going to distinguish those by applying a different scale so that they kind of read as separate. And that's the reason that we do these all independently and not all at the same time. If we do them all at the same time, they'll just be joined into one hatch and we won't be able to set different properties for them. So then I'll select all the lines one more time. I'll go in there, the center. And this time I'm going to change the rotation because the grain orientation of that end piece is a little different. Now it would actually be the end grain that we'd be looking at, but obviously we can't match it with that. So I'll just change my rotation value to 90. And so there it is, that's the end piece. And that's our first detail. The other one that we need to draw is going to be or the other two, I should say, are the handle to the side. Let's start with that guy. Again, I'm just tapping Alt and holding Shift on the keyboard to move it in the right dimension. I'm going to copy this guy right away. And I'm actually going to move. So a couple things are happening here. One of them is we need to show where this thing terminates, kind of on that box. It actually terminates in line with this guy. The end of that handle is like aligned with the joint here. But what we want to do is we want to kind of cut our object right through the middle of the handle. And so rather than seeing this kind of joint sticking out in the way of our view, it should actually be behind our view. And so again, what I'll actually do here is I'll split this line with this line, not that line. I actually just want one line, so maybe I'll draw a new one. I just want to split it in one place, not a bunch of places. I'll draw a new line there. So I'll split it with that line. Okay, so this is the part that's going to stick out that we'll see like behind the section cut. That's good. And then this part, I'm just going to explode it and delete those lines because we already have this outline. Then I can go ahead and explode this guy. I'll remove that one line. So I just held Control on the keyboard and clicked it. Join. And get rid of that one line. And then I'm going to take this outline. I'll go with these two outlines, in fact. And I'll use the command extend again. And I'll just bring that line down. Delete that line, the hatch line that's underneath. Okay. Again, I'll delete that line. I don't need it. That's kind of what we would see if we were cutting through right here. We'd see this board connecting to this base. We'd see the back edge of that long side, and we'd see the back edge of that part of the joint sticking out. So then I will. I'm actually gonna. So I'm gonna make this guy heavier line weight. I'm gonna make these two a heavier line weight because I'm cutting through them. And I'm going to leave those guys as lighter line weights. And what I actually might also do here is I'm going to move this up. That. Yeah, actually, I'll just move it up a little more so it's not kind of in the way of that other line. And then I'm going to copy it. Based on the center point, I'm going to copy it over here. And I'll rotate it. I'm going to move it down a little bit. I'm just going to kind of position it so that little squiggle isn't in the way of anything. And then I'm going to trim everything else because I don't need to see this stuff. I'm just interested in the connection between that handle and the side of the box. In fact, I'll move this over a little bit as well. And this other stuff away. And I will also, I'm going to move these endpoints in scale 1D. So notice I just selected the endpoint, so I'm not messing up my squiggle. Okay, perfect. And so now we have, again, we have the pieces that we want to show cut through, but we also need to add some other details, which is this guy is connected to this board with a wood screw, countersunk wood screw. Again, that information is dictated not only here, but it's also in our list of materials down there. Okay, and so it's a number 6, half-inch long wood screw, and there's 2 of them. And of course, we can just borrow the dimensions from here. So 1/4 inch up, that's the center of our screw, and 1 inch up is the center. Okay. I'm going to draw a line. First of all, that just will be like the center axis. Our screw, I'll change my layer first. So this, of course, is 1/2 inch long. And we know it's 1/4 inch up from the bottom. So I'll move it by 1/4 inch. There we go. And before I get too much further, I'm going to actually just draw this. I'm going to draw the screw. And so a quick Google, I say dimensions number 6. Where's my number sign? 6 wood screw. And go. So the diameter of the head is 0.28, and the diameter of the threaded part is 0.13, or I'm just going to round to 0.14. So once again, I'm going to take this line, I'm going to offset it, and I'm going to choose both sides. And I'm also going to, under distance, I'm going to type in, first of all, I'm going to go for that, the diameter of the threaded part, 0.14. And I'm going to type in 0.14 divided by 2, right? Because if we offset it to both sides, then we'll have half a dimension on either side. And so now when I go and measure this, I have a total of 0.14, which is exactly what I want. I'll offset it one more time. Again, both sides, so I'll just hit B and enter. And then I'll type in 0.28 divided by 2. There we go. So now I'm going to draw from that line down to there. I'll draw from that line, go up here. And this may actually not be touching out. Because I rounded it, they are touching, but if they weren't, we use the totally accurate dimensions. We could just scale that line up, and then we could easily trim it. These lines would be trimmed against each other. This line would go away, and we're gonna trim this, join those lines, and I'll mirror them across the center axis. Again, I'll delete the rest of these other lines. There we go. So there's the outline of our screw. And it should be positioned correctly. And I'm going to join these. I'm going to join these 2 halves. I'll just type in join. And I'm also going to type in close curve. Again, curve is abbreviated to CRV, close curve. Press enter. So that just adds a line closing the 2 open endpoints of our outline. And oops. And then the other screw is going to be 1 inch up from there. And that. So I'll just go copy. Doesn't matter where I start as long as I move it 1 inch. And I'll hold shift to snap to ortho. And there we have it. Those are screws kind of positioned. Oh yeah, the other thing I wanted to do is just quickly show you how I did that thread, and it's not based on any precise dimension. I just drew a diagonal line here, and then I used the command array, and that'll allow you to repeat a bunch of something in any direction in Rhino. For example, in the x-axis, which is horizontal in my current viewport, let's say I wanted to just repeat it along the length of this screw. So I'm going to type in more than I need. 20. I don't want to repeat it in the y-axis or the z-axis, so I'll just leave it at 1, which is what it's at by default. Okay, and then it's going to ask me to what spacing I want, and so I'm just going to click in the viewport and kind of eyeball it. I'll do like something like that. Pretty good. And it'll say enter to accept. So at this point, I could click on this guy again and change the spacing. I could click on this guy and add more lines or remove some. If I had too many. So I think I'm good. I'll just press enter. I'm going to delete all these ones down at the end because we wouldn't really see that on the screw. And these guys are all within the outline, but I could trim them if they weren't. Okay, so there's my kind of screw hatch. Again, that's just kind of a rough estimate to, rough kind of dimensioning to illustrate that that's a screw connection. Okay, and then I'm ready to, well, first of all, I'm going to trim away what I don't want to see. So I'm going to trim away that line, double line there. I'll do the same down here. That way it's, like we would actually build this by drilling a hole in the steel and then countersinking that hole. We'd also drill into the wood by drilling like a pilot hole and then screwing in. So we'd see it kind of look like this. We wouldn't see kind of that edge, right? Because these materials have been drilled or we're cutting through. So we're gonna then go ahead and hatch. So I'll start with just the wood part and I'll select all the lines and click right in where we want to hatch it. And that's exactly the same as we used before for this piece. So I'll just click OK. And then we also want to hatch the steel part. So I'll select all the lines that kind of bound the handle. And I'm going to select all the lines that, I'm going to select all the outlines, all the areas that I want to hatch, right? Because we're also cutting through that steel handle down here in these spots. So I'll select those 3 areas and press enter. I'm going to select my steel. A couple of things. I'm going to change the rotation to 45. That way we can see it all the way through. And I'm also going to lower the scale a bit here. I'll try 0.75. Pretty good. And I'll click OK. There we go. There's our hatches applied. These are all the drawing actually. Oh, I'm sorry. No, not true. I need one more detail, which is that's our dado. Draw that detail really quick. And I'll do the same as earlier. I will copy my elevation. Or actually, you know what? Better off to copy my section. That already shows exactly what I want to show. And again, the reason you would show this is because detail drawings are going to be more zoomed in. They're going to contain a different kind of information, right? And we're also going to be, kind of cropping our detail to just show like areas that it kind of makes sense to show. So because this is a detail that occurs in a few places, this dado joint, I'm just going to draw it once, and also because the dimensions are all the same, right? If I had different dimensions for all these, I'd want to make sure that I drew separate details. Let's see, 1.9. So I'll do the same. I'll scale down this little squiggle line. 1B. 1.9. So it's about the same as the other one. Balance those out a little bit. All right. I'll trim away everything I don't want. Delete everything that's outside of that outline. Okay, great. So that's all we really see in this drawing. And we've already got the lines outlined with the right line weights. All I need to do is add my hatches. We'll go wood, 90 degrees. Same down here except at 0 degrees. There we go. That's our that's that detail. Pretty simple. Okay, so that's going to round off this video. The next and final video will cover adding dimensions and putting everything into a layout. So I'll go ahead and end it here.